Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the STEM Digital School. This is Coding for Grade 7. My name is Mr. Paul de Klerk, and I'm your presenter today. And there you can see my email on the screen if you'd like to send me any questions, especially if you are viewing the live stream and you're not in the class here with us, then you can send me any questions that you might have through to that email address there, as well as share any of your creations that you're making. I would like to see what you guys are coding. I really enjoy seeing the creations that many of the students come up with. It's awesome. Right, so we do not have a full class here today. In fact, it's just me, myself, and our host. So I'm going to continue with this because these videos go up to YouTube and somebody might still benefit from them, as well as I think the grade 7s having been back to school for the first week now, I assume things are going a bit crazy, so we will give them a little bit of slack and they can then just go and catch this video on YouTube and then they can catch up that way. So here we go. Coding principles. I always share the same principles, not always, every day of the week. For a week, I share the same coding principles. And these coding principles, I've put them together by, firstly, based off of my own personal experience of working with computer code, and then secondly, by doing quite a bit of research, actually a lot of research, to find out what other people that are coding and that are teaching coding to others have to say about these ideas. And that is how I got them. So I see we have one student here. Welcome. So these coding principles are designed in a way so that when it comes to computer code, there are many different coding languages. So these principles were designed in a way that if you know them and you follow them, you should be able to learn new coding languages very easily, or easier than if you didn't know them. Okay. So once you know one coding language, it becomes easier to shift to another coding language. And you have these principles down, it becomes even more easy. Right. So the first thing we want to do is we want to identify the goal, whether this is the goal for a puzzle that we're doing on our platform, or whether this is a goal for a school project, or a goal for a project that you're doing for a client if you one day have your own coding business, or if you are doing coding for an employer. You want to make sure that you clearly understand what it is that they want this code to achieve, right? Now, usually this goal is not going to be in the form of code. They're not going to tell you the goal that I want you to achieve is you need to write 5 lines of code that says move forward. That's not the case. They're going to tell you, I want you to create code that's going to make this little character in my game do this. Okay, so that is how that, what I mean by when I say you need to identify the goal. So usually the goal is going to be a lot of code that you need to create in order to reach that goal. So to make it easier on yourself, I always advise to break that goal down into smaller problems, and then we follow the problem solving workflow, which is we need to identify those smaller problems. We need to create a solution for the smaller problems. We need to test that solution, and then we adjust the solution if we need to. So it's identify, solve, test, and adjust, okay? And then the last one is we're going to apply this information management practices. And what that means is when we start receiving information for the goal, we want to start summarizing this information, especially if you're going to be collecting a lot of information from a project, right? This is less important for what we're doing here, but you want to summarize that so that you make sure you understand completely what you need to do, and you want to create some work notes for yourself to assist you in your workflow. And then also we want to get to the point where once you start writing code, we want to organize and arrange that as well. And the reason for that is very often, especially if you are looking at probably the place where code is being, or the reason why most people learn code is from the gaming sphere. So a lot of the people in the gaming industry They are many coders working together on one game. So if everyone follows a certain standard of the way in which we create our code, it just makes it so much easier. If you start working on a project that might have been running for a couple of months or a couple of years already, now you can just carry on where the previous person left off. Or if you leave and someone else has to come and work on the code that you've created, they can look at your code and they can easily read what is happening there. This is also extremely important when it comes to problem solving. So in the coding industry, we call that debugging, right? So that's basically it. Now we are moving on to harvesting with conditionals, puzzle 6 to 11. I'm going to jump to that screen. We did puzzle 6 yesterday, but I like to review the puzzles. It's very important for us to review these things and get good practice. I'm dropping the link in the chat box, so just quickly see here. Cornelia, if you want to click on the link, you can do that. It'll open the screen like this. This is easier to do on a computer. I don't know if you're using a computer or tablet or a mobile phone. If you're using a tablet or an iPad, sort of a mobile device that is bigger than a mobile phone, you can still do this. But if you are on a mobile phone, it becomes a bit more difficult. But anyway, for those watching the live stream, what you see there in my address bar, I've just highlighted it. You can write that down exactly the way it is there. So screenshot this or write this down in the notepad. You can write this into your address bar in your own browser, and you will have the ability to come to this page, and then you can come and do some work here, and you can code the same way that we're doing. Right. So let us have a look at what is being said here. What a bountiful crop. This field has clusters of corn and lettuce growing together. With one pumpkin at the end, can you harvest everything? Right. So our goal is we need to harvest everything. And this is why I said it's important for us to identify our goal. Look at how much language is being used. Look at that. All of these words here has got nothing to do with what we actually have to do. This is just painting a scenario for us. What we actually want to do in the computer code that we will be creating is just this. We want to harvest everything. Point, done. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay. So you need to practice this ability to identify the goal for each puzzle. And especially if you're going to start doing projects and bigger things, you need to be practiced in this ability to identify what it really is that they want from us. Okay. Now, some of this information becomes useful. So you can't just ignore that. You have to read through it. Like here we say, we can see clusters of corn and lettuce. So that tells us that these little sprouts, not all of them are corn and not all of them are lettuce. So one of them might be corn, then there might be a lettuce again, then a lettuce again, then corn, we don't know. Okay. And because it says clusters, it means that there might be more than one at each sprout. So there might be 3 corn there might be 2 lettuces there might be 5 corn here, there might be 3 lettuces here, and there might be 1 lettuce at the end. And then we can see there is 1 pumpkin at the end. Okay, we can also see that on our play area, there is a number 1 next to the pumpkin, so there is only 1 pumpkin there. So now we are at the phase where we first, before we even start coding and start looking for the smaller problems, we need to look at our restrictions first. So our restrictions are that we only have 8 blocks to do this in. And 1 block has already been used for this when run block, which is connected to this button, so that when we click on this button, the code will start running. Okay. So that's one of our first restriction. The second restriction is the type of blocks that we have here for us to use. Okay, so there are different types of repeat blocks. Okay, and maybe we would have preferred to use a repeat by number where we can set how many times we wanted to repeat, but now that's not here. So there is a restriction placed on us with that regard. Right, so now we can start identifying the smaller problems, and then we can start seeing how will we fix this. So the first thing we need to do before we can check any space is we need to move to that space. So we do that by adding a move forward block, right? Now what we want to do, we want to say, because we know there are clusters, there's going to be more than one of whatever. We want to say, while there is corn, do this. And that's obviously pick corn. So this is a repeat block, and this is a conditional repeat block. You can see a harvesting with conditionals. This is a conditional repeat block, and what this is saying is, as long as there is corn, we want you to harvest the corn. But it is also saying, if there isn't any corn, do not pick corn. Carry on to whatever comes next. Right? So this condition, when this is true, this will run. This will happen. Whatever we put inside here is going to happen. If this is false, it's going to move on to the next block of code. Our next block of code, because you know there isn't only corn there, there might be lettuce as well. So we need to say, while there is lettuce, we want to pick lettuce. So if this statement is true, it's going to do that. If this statement is false, it will not do that. It will go to the next block of code, which is now telling it, okay, if there wasn't any corn, there might be lettuce, and we want you to pick the lettuce while there is lettuce. If there is no lettuce there, or all the lettuce has been picked and there's nothing left, this is going to act the same way as the first conditional, and it's not going to do this pick lettuce block here. It's going to move on to whatever we put next. Okay. So now what we have here is we have one move forward and we're checking. So we need to test this before we do anything else. And we can see there it's working, okay? So we ended up on our first block had 3 lettuces, right? So we can see we moved forward. We said while there is corn, pick corn, but there wasn't corn, so it didn't do the pick corn. It went to the while there is lettuce, pick lettuce, right? So now we see that we have 2 blocks left that we can use. But we need to do this same action on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places. So what we need to do is we need to find a way that we can make all of this code happen again and again 5 times without having to write the code again underneath it, right? Because if we write the code again underneath it, look at that. We can only add 2 more blocks. Then we're full here. We don't have more space. So the way we're going to do all of this is we're going to repeat all of this. And we do that with this repeat while there until there are pumpkins. So this is going to happen until there are pumpkins left. It's going to do this. Okay? If there are no pumpkins, this code will not run. This code will only run in this repeat if there is a pumpkin, at least one, on this playing area of ours. And then what we want to do is when we get to the pumpkin, we want to pick that pumpkin. So now what's going to happen is we're going to move, we're going to pick corn if it's corn, we're going to pick lettuce if it's lettuce. It's going to happen again and again and again and again. Now here, you'll see it says repeat until there are pumpkins. So after we've picked this last one, it's going to go back to this repeat and move forward again. That's going to put us on top of the pumpkin and allow us to pick the pumpkin. So let's run this and see. Okay, so there we're picking corn, we're picking lettuce, picking corn, picking lettuce, picking the last corn. Now you see the move forward is run. And if you could see that, I know it happened fast, but there was a yellow block running on this code. That went into this repeat until there are pumpkins. It did the move forward. It also went here. It saw there wasn't any corn, so it didn't try to pick corn. It saw there wasn't any lettuce, so it didn't try to pick lettuce. And then this repeat didn't happen again because it went into this last one here, because now this condition was about to be false. Okay, so we had a pumpkin left. There was nothing else left to do, so it went here. Okay, so I just want to run that one more time. Try to follow, if you are viewing the live stream, the yellow block that's running on the workspace. Okay. So there you can see it skipped those and it went to the last one. Right, Cornelia, are you ready? Do you understand that? Can I move on to the next puzzle? Just type a yes in the chat box if I can. I am live streaming to YouTube, so I can't wait for responses. I'm going to have to move on, I assume. Okay, there we go. There's a yes, sir. So thank you. We can move on. Great. And thank you for being here. Invite your friends to join us tomorrow. No, I'm lying, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday. We don't have coding tomorrow. When we have coding again, we're going to go into a study break next week, so there won't be any classes next week, but in that time, you can invite all your friends, get them to ask their parents to register for the mailing list on Africa Teen Geeks, and then you can have some of your friends with us here in this class. That would be nice. Okay. So now, let me just share this link again, just in case you've lost yours. Okay, good, thank you. So let's take this one step further. Okay, so what they're actually telling us here is we are going to make it more difficult. And if we look at this, it becomes quite a bit more difficult because we still only have 8 blocks, right? So it's a challenge, but let's see. Can you figure out how to pick the pumpkin? Make sure to collect all of the corn along the way. So now we have a goal, which is we need to pick the pumpkin, but there is a condition to this goal, and that condition is we need to collect everything along the way. But there is only corn, right? So this makes it a little bit easier. There isn't lettuce. They're saying make sure to collect all of the corn along the way. And if there is lettuce, we don't have to collect it. We only need to collect the corn, right? So we have 8 blocks. That's our first restriction. Our second restriction is we need to follow the pathway. We cannot just move from there coming down here over the grasslands into the pumpkins area. We need to follow the pathway, okay? So those are our 2 first obvious restrictions. The third one is these are the blocks that are available. Right, so let's break it down into the smallest problem we have. The smallest problem is we need to move from there to there. So we use a move forward block. That's an easy problem to solve. But that problem isn't completely solved because now we can see there is a sprout there and we need to do something if there is a sprout. So what we can say is while there is corn, now this is not saying whether there will be only one or more than one. So we're going to test it with the while repeat. But if there is only 1, 1, 1, then we can change it to another, perhaps to an if. Okay, it's not available. So it's going to have to be the while there is corn one, okay? So while there is corn, we want to pick corn. There's another conditional that we used earlier that said if there is corn, right? But this one only works if we only have one to pick. So we're going to move forward, and while there is corn, we're going to pick corn. So let's test that and see. Okay, we couldn't see that it works completely because the first corn was only on that side. Let's see if we have corn there now. No, it just stays the same. So it's okay. We can just believe that this is going to work. Right, so then what we need to do is we need to find a way to move more than just this one time. And we need to find a way to, every time we move, do this. Because we obviously have to go all the way to there. So the best idea is for us to use the repeat again. And this is saying while the repeat until there are pumpkins. So it's going to repeat this until there are pumpkins. Now if we test it, we can see, okay, the code is working and it's repeating this sequence here because there are still pumpkins, okay? But we have a problem there. We need to move somewhere. So here we're moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces, then we're turning left. Over here, we're moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces, turning left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces, turning left, but now it becomes tricky. Here we're moving 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3 before we turn left. So for us to really code that in the long way, we would have said this: move forward, move forward, move forward, and again, and again, and then we would have had a turn left. Then we would have repeated this 3 times. Then we would have had another sequence, which is move forward 3 times and turn left once. And we would have repeated that twice to account for this here. But now we know about conditional, so we don't need to do that anymore. So now what we do is we are going to tell the code that if there is a path to the left, then we want you to turn left. So an if conditional works in this way. If there is a path, do this. If there is no path, this is false, then don't do this. Just carry on back into the repeat. Okay, so now we are saying move once. While there is corn, pick corn. After you've done that, check for a path to the left. If it is there, turn left. Okay, so let's see if this is going to work. And you can see those black lines that looks like a Wi-Fi symbol. That is the code checking and showing us visually how she's checking for a path to the left. You can see it continues everywhere. Okay. Now this is not our solution yet. This is just one part of our solution. Okay. Right. Now she's going to turn onto that pumpkin, and when she's on the pumpkin, there's no more path to turn left to, but there's something we need to do. We need to pick the pumpkin. So we need to add one block here that says pick the pumpkin. Now if we run it, so remember what I said earlier. We want to break the goal down into smaller problems. So the first problem was we need to move and pick corn. The second problem was we have to be able to turn when we can turn. The last problem was we have to pick a pumpkin. So there are 3 different sequences of code all linked together in one conditional repeat that allows us to solve all those problems and reach our goal. Okay. Cornelia, was that clear enough? Oh, I see we have Gao also back. Welcome. Cornelia and Gao, is that good? Can I move on to the next one? Or do you want me to look at this one again? Okay, Cornelia says yes, we can move along. Gao says yes, we can move along. Right, so let's move along. I'm just going to share the link. I'm not sure if Gao could access it, but there it is now. Okay. So this is a challenge puzzle. Now, these are lessons designed to stretch your brain. So we can just do the best that we can. But I know you guys are good enough for us to solve this entire thing. I just need to take a sip of water. Give me a second, please. That's the one problem with teaching in this way. We speak quite a lot. Okay. Right, let's see what the first thing is that we need to look at. And that is we need to identify the goal. Collect all of the corn and lettuce, then pick the pumpkin. Now, they're not telling us how much corn or lettuce there will be. So what I want to do is I'm going to run this, and then I can already see there are more than one in many places. Right, so now that gives us an idea of which block we're going to use. So that was my first problem. I don't know whether there is only one or more than one. So by running, even though I don't have any code here, I can reveal what is under there. And often these ones, they'll change. Now for this puzzle, it doesn't, but sometimes it'll change this to a 3 and this one to a 1 or whatever. Okay. So that helps us to figure this out. So the next problem is we need to find a way to move. And we know by now we do it like this. Then we need to find a way to do something. While there is corn, we want to pick the corn. And then also while there is lettuce, we want to pick the lettuce. Right. Okay. So if we run this now, we're going to see we've got one space's solution sorted, but now we need to try and repeat that all the way. Even on the empty blocks, we want to check whether there is corn or not. Okay. So we know there's nothing there, but we need to tell the code to check on even the empty spaces as well, because it's too difficult to tell the code. It's not too difficult. It's just going to take too much code to make the harvester check there, not there, but check there and not there, because there isn't a clear pattern, right? So it becomes extremely not difficult, but involved, meaning we're going to definitely need more than 10 blocks to do that. So this is the shortest way. Okay, so now we want this to repeat all the way to the end there. So now we've got a few options here. While there is a path ahead, or we can say repeat until there are pumpkins, or we can tell it to repeat something a certain amount of times. Okay. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to just use this repeat until there are pumpkins, because the end goal is we want to pick the pumpkin after we've collected all of this. Right. So now when we click this, it's going to complete that line, but we have a bit of a problem here. We're out of a pathway there. We need to move, okay? Or not move, turn. We can't move anymore there, look. So there's a problem. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say, if there is, just see, no, oh, you know what? We're going to have to do this in a different way, because we do not have the block that says if path right, turn right. Okay. And also we can't use that block because it will turn here everywhere here. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to change, or perhaps we can just put a turn right there, but I don't think that's going to work, but maybe. So let's test it. So obviously, once we cannot move forward anymore, we're going to turn right. But I don't know how that is going to react when we start walking into cows. No. We can't use it this way. We also cannot put it inside, because then we're going to walk in a square like that. Right, so that's why we try to solve the problems one step at a time. So the problem that we're having is this repeat is not going to help us here. What we want to do is we want to use the while path ahead. You want them to do that. And then we want to turn right once there isn't a path ahead anymore. So let's run. Oops. Okay, so that worked, right? Not for the entire thing. It worked for the first line. Okay, so it checked for a path. It moved. It harvested everything that needed to be harvested, and it turns right. Now this entire thing, we can nest inside the repeat while there are pumpkins. And then at the end of that all, we want to say pick the pumpkin. Right. So now it's checking for a path ahead. While there is a path ahead, the code will let the harvester move and check these things. Once there isn't a path ahead anymore, the code is going to tell the harvester to turn right. There you can see. All right. So these cows are also blocking the path. So that is why this while path ahead is a functioning repeat that we can actually use, right? And then we find that we can pick the pumpkin there. Okay. I want to show you what this code looks like in real coding, right? Look at that. This is a while conditional there, a while loop, right? Over here is another one. Here's another one. There's our move forward block. This is our get lettuce block. That's our get corn block. Here's the get pumpkin block, and here's the turn right block. Okay. So this is what it looks like in text and line-based coding. Okay, so I just want to talk through this one more time. So if we start with the easiest problem first, I'm not taking all of these off because I don't want to rebuild the entire thing. We're going to move forward. That's our easiest problem. The second thing we need to take care of is the lettuce and the corn. Now, whether you put the lettuce one first or the corn one first, it's not going to make a difference. It just has to be after the move forward. It cannot be before the move forward, right? Now, this we want to happen until the end of this first pathway, but we don't want to create a situation where we turn right in the wrong place, okay? And if we say repeat until there are pumpkins, there is no block that we can use, and even if it was there, that says if there is a path to the right, because there's, for all of these spaces here, there is a path to the right. So instead of letting the code check for a path to the right, we're letting the code check for a path moving forward. And then we tell the code, okay, if there is no more path that is moving forward, then you turn right. Okay, so there's two different ways to achieve the same thing, but it's a different application, because the if path to the right is going to work if we only have one path where this person can turn into. But now there are many paths for her to turn into, so we need to find a different way to do that, right? Now, this entire thing is a sequence that is going to be the solution for that first line. As you can see there, it's working and it is solving the first pathway and it turns, right? Now we need to repeat that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So we can use this repeat 6 if we want to, or we can just use the repeat until pumpkins. Now I like to use the repeat until pumpkins because then I don't have to count anything. I'm lazy that way. And then once we found the pumpkin, we want to pick the pumpkin. Okay. Are you guys ready? If this is finished, can we move on to the next puzzle? Okay. Either Gao is eating or cannot reach the keyboard now, but that's fine. So here we have a very similar thing happening. Collect all of the corn and lettuce, then pick the pumpkin. Again, we have 10 blocks. Now the map just looks a little bit different, right? Again, we don't really want to use something while there is a path to the left or to the right. The reason for that is there is a path to the right there and there, okay? And these aren't necessarily ones that we want to take. So again, we find the easiest problem first, which is move forward. So one needs to be corn, one needs to be lettuce. So this solution looks exactly the same as the first one. There you can see it works for that one block. So we need to repeat that many times. So we do that again while there is a path ahead. And once there isn't a path ahead anymore, then we want to turn right. Okay, because you can see that cow is blocking the path. We want to turn right when that path ahead stops. Here's the same thing. The path ahead stops. So here we want to turn right. Over there's the same thing. Now over here, we're going to have to check if this is going to work, because if this is going to make this code turn right and then walk this way, we'll have to see. I'm not sure. Okay, so this we want to do until there are pumpkins. And then we want to pick the pumpkin once we reach the pumpkin. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to continue. I don't think it will, but let's see. Okay, it wasn't a path anymore, so the code let the harvester move forward. Now's the moment of truth. Okay, good. So as it was turning right, it collected the pumpkin. So we were fine with this code. So this is actually exactly the same code that we had earlier, just a different application. Are you happy with this puzzle number 9? Can we move on to puzzle number 10? I would be very happy if we can almost finish this today, and we might be able to do it because, as I said, next week there's a study break. So I would like, I would like it if we could come back after the study break to the lesson number 16. That would be awesome. You guys are my class that is the furthest ahead in this entire thing. So that's cool. Right, so let's continue on to puzzle number 10. I'm just going to paste the link there. I know you guys are on there, but this just helps me to know that everything you chat after the link is related to this. Okay, so collect all of the corn and lettuce, then pick the pumpkin, right? So again, the goal is pick the pumpkin, but the conditions are we need to collect all the corn and lettuce. Now we have 11 blocks, okay? So let's see. Obviously, there's going to be a few more turns here. The first step for us is going to be to move forward, as you can see. Then we would like to turn right. Now, we can do it this way because the sprouts and the pumpkin is going to be after a right turn the entire time. You can see there, we're moving forward, turning right, there it is. Moving forward, turning right, there it is. Okay, so we obviously need to move forward again before we're on the sprout, but each time after the turn right, that is where the sprout or the pumpkin is. That is where the action needs to happen. So now we tell this, while there is corn, we want you to pick corn. And while there is lettuce, we want you to pick lettuce. Just choose the right toggle there. Okay. So if we test this now, we can see that's going to work. But after that's done, we obviously need to turn this way, which is going to be a turn left. Okay. And this entire thing, which is now our solution for that, will become another move forward again if we repeat this. So now we can repeat this, in my opinion, to that, and then put the pick pumpkin right at the end. Let's see. No, that doesn't work. Why not? Oh, this is why. This is supposed to be left, not right. I'm trying to run through this quickly, and then I make mistakes. I'm not following my own problem-solving workflow. I actually saw the problem, and I didn't give it any notice. Right. So I want to chat on this one quickly again, because it is a little bit different from what we've had before. So our first problem was just to identify the movement to get onto the crop. Okay. The second thing that I identified was that the crop will always be after the same movement that happens. So there will never be a crop directly after the turn left in this puzzle. Just by looking at it, I can see that. Right. So now I know that after we've turned right and we've moved on to the crop, we can put this there. Okay. Because as I said again, there aren't any crops here in the top blocks. So it's always going to be after the turn right. Now, after we've done that, we want to turn left. And we need this to repeat because we can see that this is going to happen a couple of times. And then we want to pick the pumpkin. Okay, are you guys ready for the last puzzle of this lesson? Type a yes in the chat box if you're ready. Then we can move on. We have 7 minutes, give or take. Good. I like the energy. I like the spirit. Let's see. Oh, it's an easy one. Nice. Well, then I can leave you with a challenge. That's going to be good. Right. The sprouts in this puzzle will be either corn or lettuce. Take a close look at the code below. What will happen after you click run? Okay. So let's read them first. The harvester will collect all of the crops. The harvester will not pick any of the crops with the path she's taking. The harvester will pick all of the crops except the pumpkin. I don't know. D is never an option. Never. Okay, so now we look at this. We see there is a pattern here. So now let's see what the code says. Repeat until there are pumpkins. So that seems right. Move forward, yes. Turn left. Okay, move forward, yes. Turn right. And then pick. Then move forward. Turn left, move forward, turn right, pick. Left. Okay. So this is working. The only problem is there isn't one for the pumpkin. So, Gal, C is right. Cornelia, do you agree? You see the right answer? She thinks so. Right. I also think so. So let's see. Right. So they're doing this a little bit different than what we did it. Okay, let's just review this one more time. Okay, there is no pick pumpkin block here. So she's definitely not going to pick the pumpkin. When we wrote our code in the previous problem, we were coming down this way. We put the check for this before the turn. They're putting it after the turn. It doesn't matter because you're still standing on the same spot. Okay, that's important to notice here. So let's just jump back quickly to puzzle number 10. If we put this turn left there, it's still going to function. Look, the code is still working. Okay, because now remember, let's just take this, not that out. I want to remove all of this from the loop. Come on. After she turns left, she's still standing on that block. So she can still harvest while she's standing on that block. Okay, she doesn't have to necessarily first harvest and then turn. It doesn't matter. I just did it that way because that's logically how I was thinking, but it doesn't matter. So just to clarify that quickly for you. Right, let's run this and go on to the next one, which we've solved already. Okay, that one's good. So this one, it's clear. We are going to harvest everything, just not the pumpkin because there is no pumpkin there. So now what I want to do is I want to, when this finishes, continue. And I want to give you this bonus level. Look at that. This looks like it's going to be a bunch of fun. Pay attention to your goal. Pay attention to these amount of blocks that you can use, to the restrictions, what you have available, and solve this. Do you think you can do this, Cornelia and Gao? Sorry. Do you think you can do this? Gao says yes. Okay. Now, and Cornelia, once you've done that, send me an email. Take a screenshot of that. Take a photo with the cell phone. Upload the photo to an email, or just send the email from the phone. I'd love to see how you guys came up with that solution. Okay. I'd really like that. Anyway, in the meantime, we are going to be on a study break next week. It has now been confirmed, but obviously your parents will receive official communication from the lockdown, from the STEM Digital School. They're also in the process of trying to make this carry on even after lockdown. So all that official communication will come to your parents if they are subscribed to the newsletter on Africa Teen Geeks' website. So what I'm trying to say is we will be able to do this for quite a while more, and there are very exciting things happening, especially with the coding, okay? I know some things that I'm not at liberty to share yet, but you need to know that there are some very exciting things that are happening. We're working hand in hand with the Department of Basic Education to create something awesome, okay? So ask your friends to come and join us. Your friends that you think would like this, they can come and join us, and they can come and have a bit of fun with us. So I said this to Monday because when I created my slide, we didn't know about exactly when the study break would be. So we will continue with functions in Minecraft. Now, these are really important. Functions are one of the main things that we use when we are creating video games. We will do this once we come back after the study break, and those dates of when we will return will be communicated to you. In the meantime, thank you to the STEM Digital School for providing us with this platform and this opportunity. They created the hosts, they created the platform, they did everything. So without them, this entire process wouldn't have been possible. You can follow them on these social media handles on social media and use these hashtags when you post about us on social. Have an awesome weekend. Thank you, Gao and Cornelia, for being here. You are excellent students.